Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
UnSpun.
Well done. I'm always looking forward to the new way of doing the UnSpun.
That one, I just really worked on that a lot over the past
good.
week, thinking, how am I going to say it this week?
Inspo. It's your inspiration, your weekly inspo. By the way, I love the look.
I know it's my roll up my sleeves kind of a crazy day in BC politics once again.
Once again, and this one was a big one. We actually delayed the taping of the podcast. Thank you, by the way, for tuning in. We're loving the feedback that we're getting on UnSpun. You can follow us on Twitter at UnSpun Podcast, or I'm at Jody with a Y, Vance. And you are?
George _. Too much? Affleck?
A little bit too much, George.
All right.
But we like you that way. But I want your too much unspun on what we were delaying the podcast for today was the release of the official statement from Carol James and David Eby regarding the Peter German report on money laundering in our province. It seems like the bombshells just never stop dropping, and I watched David Eby, the Attorney General, constantly seems to be saying, "I'm shocked by this. I'm shocked. There's some surprising things." Like, is anybody really shocked at this point? With all due respect to David Eby, but is anybody really?
Well, I think I think that what's interesting is we keep getting this information and all this data and all this craziness.
Right.
What I find interesting is we're all being shocked and the government's dealing with it. And what the other side, though, the people who perhaps within the casino industry or the real estate industry or whatever are strangely quiet. I don't see a lot of defense on their side because how would they defend this at this point? There might be defenses that they would bring up. There might be some accuracies that are missing.
But the numbers, we got it.
The numbers today on this stuff specifically. There are some big numbers today. About $5 billion per year laundered through the real estate industry. Now
in BC.
In BC. Now to be clear, there are, and so I was trying to do the math on this because I haven't seen the math that just came in. There are 100 on average about the last several years, about 100,000 homes sold per year in BC. So assuming it's $5 billion, if we assume that, say, the average home that these people are laundering is what, if it's $5 million, that's 1,000 homes. If it's a million, do the math. But so it doesn't it represents perhaps anywhere between 1% and 5% of the market.
But it's the trickle down because clearly we have felt the impact of this. And it lit a fire under maybe others who were looking to just get in on a red hot market that otherwise wouldn't have. So while the money laundering piece is one when it comes to the housing market, what it did in turning real estate in the Lower Mainland in particular into basically a stock market.
It's a perfect storm, right? Yeah. We had not only this, which they're represents 5% of the increases to real estate. We had just a hot market in general following the Olympics and the economy coming back. And a generational change with a bunch of boomers handing off money to their kids
and
right
downsizing.
now.
Yeah.
Downsizing as well. So you got these luxury condos. Even if you look, and I sat on council and we're trying, this was obviously an issue of pricing and affordability.
When do you remember that? Sorry,
it was always there.
But like when did you first go, we have a problem here?
Well, I was always arguing that we were seeing 1,000 homes, single-family homes, being torn down per year in Vancouver. Per year, 1,000 homes being replaced mostly by single-family homes. Going from, and I was always concerned about this, and voted against several reports that I thought encouraged more of this tearing down, because a lot of these homes had basement suites that were affordable. The homes themselves were affordable. They were going from what were a small house on a fairly small lot to a giant house on a small lot. So, for me,
and then they sit empty largely.
And then they sit empty, and this whole sort of started on the west side of Vancouver in the Dunbar area.
That's why you were so popular.
Yeah. Well, I was very vocal about we need to focus on, because we couldn't, the solution and the laundering that didn't exist when I was there. We knew there was a problem, but how do we solve this? The solution that I kept bringing up is why are we putting these things ahead of homes that are more affordable? Why are we prioritizing luxury condos?
Say? Why aren't we building more homes that the people don't want? Like the people that are
homes that we had reports that came to us saying the kinds of homes that are lived in and affordable were townhouses and row houses. Yeah. And if you look at many of those units in the city, they weren't appealing to this money laundering community. They
I
wanted
live in a house that used to be one character home on a massive lot that became 6 3-floor freestanding non-conforming strata structures.
Yeah.
6. So 6 single-family homes on one piece of property that used to have one small character home on a large
But are
piece of property.
are they affordable though, or are they luxury condos?
No, well, I live in it, so it's affordable.
So this is your choice. Yeah. So so this is the difference though,
Yeah,
right? So
it's
we were
not a luxury condo. It's 1,600 square feet.
Exactly. So you 6 on that site. That's one. Now then you get into the whole issue of density and neighborhood character and all that other stuff. But
it's an
the
example
issue we
of
were spending so much time encouraging the ability to tear down homes that were fine and replace them with these luxury homes and luxury condominiums. I don't know anybody that lives in these luxury homes or these luxury condos. I live in a condo downtown. It's not luxury, but
it's still north of $1.5 million probably, because that's what we're looking at.
Now, well, maybe not now.
I'm making the assumption.
Maybe not tomorrow.
I've never been to George's.
We're down by 20% in a year, but it's
after being up by 50%.
Yes, 3 kids in an 800 square foot condo is for 20 years. But it's not luxury. But I think that what happened. So whose role and whose responsibility is this? And that's what we're now. That's what's next.
It has to be what's next, because this week, because I don't know that we touched on it in the last episode of UnSpun. But the role being played by the luxury car industry.
Yes, so that came out this week as well.
I find that the most frustrating of all this, as much as the housing has really messed with our economy and affordability, and it's hurt so many people like that, it's a big problem, so I'm not saying that's not the biggest of them, but the most glaringly obvious from my perspective was how Vancouver, my hometown, born and raised here, how it became the #1 luxury car market in the world.
Curious
that.
How is that possible?
Curious, because these cars are they start at $400,000 each. Start.
My 2003 Toyota Sienna minivan.
My Prius.
Not
a Lamborghini. But there are
I drive it like a Lamborghini, I must say. At least my kids say so.
Who invest in a luxury car that aren't money launderers. There are people that I went on a charity event a couple of weeks ago with a young man who had success in business. He had worked super hard. He took this small business, went to 100 employees, sold it, and he always wanted to have the gorgeous Lamborghini, ridiculously.
If you want to make the worst investment in your life, hey,
then have at her. And
it.
he did. But you know what? He's taking terminally ill children for rides in the car is what he does.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not painting the entire luxury car industry with the same brush, but it's pretty obvious.
As a dude, hey, having a cool car is something you do aspire to as a kid.
As a chick, I really like cars too.
Yeah, so I get the emotional attachment to cars, but in the case of the fact that we were this luxury car
really
capital,
obvious.
I mean, it seems to me
it was really obvious, George.
It seems like, but we didn't know where the money was coming from until now, and so that the luxury car thing. The dirty money paying for these homes
and
$5 billion and the casino stuff is just the beginning, and I think we're setting ourselves up. We talked about this last week. There has to be an inquiry.
Right?
There has to be.
So
there's nothing more to say, but now it's about
who's responsible.
Yes.
Or who was complacent.
Can
Because even more importantly for me, and I don't know for you should tweet at us at UnSpun Podcast, or tweet at George_Affleck. That's my favorite, because you clap back. Do you feel frustrated by the fact that there were clearly people complacent standing by? Yeah.
Brad West just tweeted this, mayor of Port Coquitlam. You don't move $5 billion of dirty money through Vancouver real estate housing market without the help of a number of lawyers and realtors. It's blood money, and there must be accountability and consequences for those involved. I mean, that is what people want. I think they want accountability. They want somebody to take responsibility for this. Is it the politicians? We don't know. Is it the real estate industry? Is it the car industry?
Is it possible?
Well, and that's the fear. Is this will be a witch hunt? What will this be? What will it? Will it just become a lawyer, filled fiasco that will end in nothing and spend years and years and years? NDP, they started this press conference off today talking about the solutions they're already doing. They had a list of all the things they've done.
The 30-point housing plan.
Yeah, and but they were there too for the last 15, 20 years with a strong opposition.
We'd like to think naively maybe that our governments do work together sometimes. Like, it's not partisan politics all the time, is it? Like, will the
No, but
Liberal,
did both parties take a blind eye on this? Turn a blind eye? Is that what happened?
Is the Liberal Party right now working in concert with the NDP and the Green Party to try and fix what's broken in this province? Or is the Liberal Party sitting there going, good luck with that, and then when you can't fix it, we'll take over and try and, like, how does that work behind the scenes? I don't know. I'm asking.
Depends when the election is. I mean,
Right.
that's the challenge.
So the election's coming up.
Well,
so
is it? We don't know. It could
Probably.
be at any given time. I would say that you've got the gas prices on the one side, which is killing the NDP, but then you've got this nightmare, which is perhaps helping the NDP in the case of an election, saying, "Do you want those guys back? They were in charge." That's definitely that's what they're trying to lay out there, saying it wasn't our fault. It was the government previously. But now, as has been noted by I think it was Baldry or one of the columnists wrote about, you've been there for 2 years, the NDP, and 2 years of that, the worst years were under your watch. I think it was Vaughn Palmer actually who wrote that. This was under your watch.
You've got to be reading. You know what? Actually, sign up. Go to the Orca.ca and sign up. Put your email address in because you get the Fin.
Yeah, you get them all.
The Fin newsletter. I mean, and the way McLean.
They do all the work for us.
They do.
Unbiased, truly. It's everything that's kind of being reported related to politics in BC.
Because people assume that it is one side or the other when you get the Fin. It is brilliantly written, and I'm not saying that
saves me
just
a lot
'cause
of
I work
time
there.
as far
Me too.
as
It will
all the
have
media.
Every important story that you
curated.
must read.
Here it is.
Yes.
This is a summary.
And
check it out.
it's simple. The Orca.ca, put in your email address, hit it. I read it first thing every morning. Even if I don't go deep into every story, I like the way McLean Kay, our editor-in-chief, sets things up.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. He quips well. So sign up for that so you can stay on top of what's happening, because we're only here once a week, but also downloadable from the Orca.ca. I'm not even sure what to say about this other than I feel like I've been screaming into the void with regard to money laundering. Every time one of these comes up, I'm like, come on, do something. But we're seeing what's happened to our housing market, happen elsewhere in the country, and maybe it needs to be a huge plague in Toronto and Montreal and beyond for it to be something that the feds get on.
Well, we were talking about this before. Is will this solve the problem, or is this dealing with all this? It's kind of, and I read. I'm stealing this line, but I don't know who said it. It's kind of whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah.
So we're whacking this problem.
That's right.
And we're
BC,
hitting it. We're hitting it.
Boom, and it's like Montreal.
Well, you see Montreal. Their price of real estate's going crazy right now, and Montreal and Quebec in general is a huge conduit for immigration because they have the regulations are much more open there, and they are seeing real estate prices skyrocket like we did a few years ago in Vancouver. So is that money laundering money? I don't know, but it seems very, very similar to what happened in Vancouver.
This goes back to what you were saying when we first started this, 17 weeks ago, and when we first started talking about the impact, where some people want to blame immigration, and others are like, no, it's actually organized crime. And then others are saying, if you say it's anything from an international investment perspective, you're a racist.
Well, and it is breeding racism.
It is.
You are seeing people feel comfortable about seeing racist things, mostly against Chinese.
And even Canadian born and raised Chinese presenting people of color, and people of Chinese background and heritage
are being accused
attacked by it. It's awful, and
so
it needs to stop.
Yes, agreed. And it's one of these things, and certainly in my experience in politics, and I brought this up. I said we're fostering a certain kind of racism by some of the policies that we're developing because they are targeting a demographic, and we're talking about this demographic only. And I think it's not just Chinese money laundering going on. There's a lot of Russian money laundering going on too.
I was just going to say that was the big thing back in the day, like when I worked in the nightclubs and whatnot. The gangs who came in that we identified were Russian gangs, or color-wearing gangs who were locals.
Yes.
Let's move on to the legislature because there is a report that's coming. We're expecting within a couple of weeks?
3 weeks, I thought I heard. But with all this other stuff going on, I'm getting
This
confused by all these things happening.
This is the Craig James, Gary Lance, Daryl Plecas drama that has been unfolding where the independent judge has come in.
Analyzing everything that's going on, and
so we're still waiting.
Obviously, this will. Who knows? Will this be the opposite of what we've heard in the past. I mean, this story has been gone for a little while now.
Yeah.
Plecas has been quite quiet. And so I'm assuming that they're just waiting to see what happens, and it's going to be interesting. That's a few weeks away, apparently.
I can't wait for that other shoe to drop on this, because that one, all the way along, has just been too. Let's just wait for our time.
Yeah, if you can hear, we're on Main Street here. That sometimes bleeds through our wall.
It makes it real and edgy.
That's right.
When I look at what's gone on at the legislature, I just wonder how, from a taxpayer's perspective, as we like to come from here, how we can have two very high-ranking officials in our legislature on paid leave for an extended period of time with really no consequence of any or actual charges, and the information isn't there. We've been sort of piecemealed information here, which I find...
it was all heightened for a couple of months there,
Yeah.
and then it kind of went away. And yeah, I mean,
And then they went
these
on
things take
making-
time. It kind of like this inquiry idea these
could be
things
years.
take time. And so in this case with the Plecas stuff is in respect to what's happening with the money laundering thing, small.
Right. But even if, I
and it's
hope,
taking forever.
unlike the German report, the Dr. Peter German report on money laundering, where it's the first step in many dominoes to fall, my hope is that this report coming back on the legislature will actually give us some closure there, one way or the other. Either give these people their jobs back because, you know what, they found the loopholes and they used them, and moving forward those loopholes
Or do
will be
the
closed,
severance and
or
move
you're,
on.
or you're out. Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on to the Nanaimo by-election.
Yes,
I found that rather exciting. I love a guarantee when you should never guarantee being a sportscaster.
That was the
You
campaign manager for the Green Party.
don't ever guarantee a win, and then
They won. They
won.
ass. They were like so much further ahead.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I think NDP are quite shocked federally and provincially. I think going, okay, this green wave is. We had PEI last week, and now this win in Nanaimo, and there's all this. Okay, I guess the Green Party is going to be the next federal party. The next prime minister is going to be,
Elizabeth May.
I mean, I think that there is a slight. This is a by-election. We've heard that. The numbers you hear about the possibility of the Green Party, is 5 to 15 seats that they could win. Jody Wilson-Raybould, I think she put out a tweet.
Congratulatory tweet, which
tweet.
made me immediately forward it to George and go, oh,
Yeah.
is she going green?
Yeah, well, I think in that riding, if you look at Nanaimo, you look at Oak Bay, you look at these places where the Green Party does well, they're quite affluent. They're either older, and then there's a younger demo, and an older demo, and an affluent demo. And I know that my mom voted Green Party, and I, what are you doing? She wasn't affluent, but she was older, and she did. And when she was younger, she always voted Conservative. And then in her older, when she got into her 70s, she just said, "Oh, I'm going to vote for the Green Party." I'm like, why? They just seem to really care. I'm like, oh God, okay.
Well, Claire Martin, actually
sure.
a very good friend of
What
mine.
politician doesn't care? Claire Martin, yes, who ran for the Green Party.
That's where I was going. She cared. She cares. Continues to care.
Yes.
But and largely being a scientist, her platform is the want for the attention to the science surrounding climate change. And many people are pointing to the Nanaimo by-election or Prince Edward Island as, is this an example of how voters are starting to say to the other parties with a wink and a nod, you better get climate change at the top of your agenda, or I'm voting green.
Well, and you see Trudeau doing that now, so that's
which
his
I think is
number
a good,
one thing.
It's a good effect, but I don't know that the Green Party, I'm no expert, but from what I'm garnering from the Richard Zussmans and the Keith Baldrys and the U of the world, that I'm getting that the noise is there, and then I hear Elizabeth May speaking. I think she was talking to Simi Sarah, and she's like, you have to go into this thinking that you can win it all. So there's a reason why the Greens
yeah, of
have
course.
that, right?
You're in it to win it when you're in politics. Even if you come in last place, your brain has to be in it, thinking I'm going to win this. And, and of course, some people are like, yeah, good luck, buddy. But
we should point out that
having never lost an election myself, I don't know what.
That's why I tried to get him to run for mayor. The turnout, or the voter turnout in the Nanaimo by-election was about 47%, and it's a fairly small pool of voters.
Yeah.
35,000 people stayed home because 4 or 5 months, 5 months out from the federal election, they'll all go to the polls again.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens there.
And will this Green Party, this Green Wave, what we've seen in Vancouver, there's 3 seats. We saw PEI. We see, we see this in Nanaimo now. This Green Wave, will the possibility? Okay, so they get 5 seats. Maybe the Prime Minister has a minority government. Maybe the Green Party holds a balance of power, which, by the way, is an argument and testament to the first past the post system can work and create balanced governments because, contrary to all those people who hate first past the post and really want keep fighting for a proportional representation, we have Prince Edward Island, which is a mixed group. We have Vancouver City Council, totally mixed up. Yeah. We have the provincial government in BC, first past the post, mixed up. Balance of power is controlled by this relationship between the NDP and the Green Party. And potentially now, federally, using a first past the post system, we might have this balanced government where we have 3 or 4 major parties all having to figure out how to
work together.
So I always believe that the electorate is smart and intuitive, and people want these kind of governments right now, and so they're electing them. And I don't know how that.
But we didn't need to change our voting system.
We didn't need to change our voting system because sometimes you do. Yeah. Sometimes you need governments that are strong and they need to make decisions, and you need that majority to get things done fast. Sometimes we need to take a step back. The people want something more balanced, and that happens, and it's happened over and over again under first past the post. That's my first past the post sales job for today.
Love that.
Wasn't even part of our conversation plan, but I thought
I'd
throw it out there.
But I did think of you when that result happened because we've had this conversation about first past the post versus pro rep, and it can happen just simply because votes count.
Yes.
In Canada. They currently do, and the argument for changing the system was your vote doesn't count.
Yeah. Well,
clearly your vote does count. The system's not broken. That's not to say that proportional representation, I don't know enough about it, you know far more than I do, it wouldn't have scared the living bejesus out of me, but I'm pretty comfortable with Canada being Canada. It's been pretty good to me so far. Totally. Now let's go to...
I'm going to give you a segue.
Okay, segue me.
Okay, so for example, in Vancouver,
yes,
we had Vision Vancouver with Gregor Robertson, who was the mayor, and now
how many in the
and there were 43 communication staff that helped him be in power. Then he lost power. Now we have this balanced government. But now what's Gregor Robertson doing?
New job alert.
New job alert. Whoop, whoop.
What's he doing?
He's working for some UN organization that we don't know where the money comes from to pay for it, but I think I might. Well, we might find out in a couple of years. I think we can all guess. But basically, he's flying around the world.
Now I want you to tell me what you're guessing.
Well, I just think it's the same organizations that fund everything that Jason Kenney is screaming about. I think but we won't know for a long time.
No, I truly didn't know what you were thinking.
I think it's the same groups. But anyways, he's now working for this organization, which is he's going to be traveling around the world in jets, talking to cities about how they can become like Vancouver. There was a theory. People told me about the Tides Foundation has this thing called the 500-year plan. And Vancouver was the first place for the beginning of their 500-year plan that they would then extrapolate across the world.
Really?
And
the 500-year plan?
Which is about building
cities. Was ending homelessness in there somewhere?
Yes. Ouch.
No, there was like a hard out for that.
No, that was about winning elections.
Yeah, but that
for
was
him.
Just the most brutal thing.
And I think that was his Achilles heel for sure. But anyways, he's traveling around the world in jets. The ironic
in the name of
poster boy
saving
for irony.
The world, the climate, you travel around the world.
Yes, but I'm glad he's landed on his feet. I was really worried about him. I thought, what's Gregor? What's he gonna do after
You're
him?
Such a good man.
Yeah.
What a good,
me
good
and Gregor.
There's a new good man in London. He's the little baby.
Oh yes, little Archie.
We've got to mention Archie.
You know, my son, his name's Quinn, my youngest, and my mom, she died just after he was born, but she wanted us to call him Archie. And so she would always call him Archie. Oh, little Archie's here, and
because she wanted that name.
And she wanted,
and she was like,
we thought that's a terrible name.
And now you love it.
No, it's a terrible name. It's an Archie comic.
Archibald.
Yeah, is it even Archibald? It's just Archie, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I heard somebody say it was Archibald.
Maybe it's
Archibald. I hope it's just Archie. I think that would be cool. I think he makes Archie cool.
I guess they made George cool. I guess for William and Kate.
If Benedict Cumberbatch can make Benedict Cumberbatch cool, Archie.
I'm not sure he has yet.
Yo, he does Doctor Strange.
Yeah, but nobody's called Benedict. Anybody? Does anybody tell me?
I know lots of Bens.
Tweet at us about if your kid is named Benedict.
Yeah, what's your least favorite name? At UnSpun Podcast is where you tweet at us. At George.
_Affleck.
That's what you did earlier. At Jody Vance. We love hearing from you. Give us feedback. You can always download the podcast, of course, at theorca.ca. And you can follow the Orca at the Orca BC.
I hope you're all taking notes because this is a lot of information.
We need some pop-up. Hey, speaking of a lot of information.
And by the way, I just want to get back to my shirt. My shirt, which I got a complaint about my shirt last week, so I probably got to get a complaint.
Oh, right, the
about
plaid.
I had my Christmas shirt on. I think I call it. I don't know why I was
thought
wearing
it
it.
looked great.
It broke up the gray behind us. If you're watching us, if you're listening, it broke up the gray behind us.
If you're listening, you're missing my fabulous hair.
Yes, I'm wearing this collarless shirt today, so I look forward
good.
to my critics getting at me for what I should be wearing. And now I know what it's like to work in television.
Right, here's your perfect segue, critics getting at you. My column, the middle this week, was all about a colleague of mine from CKNW, Janet Brown. She's an award-winning journalist. Janet is legitimately one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. And she was on Twitter talking about gas prices and taking transit instead of driving a car. And one of the things that Janet put out there was that she can't take transit when she's taking her son. They live in Surrey, and the son plays hockey
sports
in
it's
Chilliwack or Cloverdale.
Rink times.
I gotta check my
Rink
because you can't
times.
get them. So
that's why my kids were in soccer.
And I pulled my son out of hockey because it was a midweek 5 a.m. at UBC, and I'm like, no, not doing it. But Janet got attacked so profoundly on Twitter. Read the column.
Right.
So go to theorca.ca and hit up. You can find it the middle with me, and I kind of tell the story because I was also attacked. I've told you about that. Totally attacked for my answer to personally for dealing with high gas prices was I gave up my Jeep and I bought a hybrid, or I lease a hybrid. And it basically pays for itself versus what my Jeep cost in gas.
Are you joining the Green Party? Gas. Are you the leader of the Green Party now?
I am the leader. No.
Are you saying that everybody in BC should lease a hybrid?
That's what I got attacked with.
You will co-sign those loans?
I'm a radical centrist, George. I'm just telling you what I do. But Janet got attacked, and I think we need to find some middle that the people who are diehard about what they think will fix everything, consider how you come at people, because there were people that I thought I respected on Twitter who came at Janet in a way that made me think, that's extreme. Like, calm down. It's kind of like the 420 discussion we had, right?
Which, by the way, the polling today came out, 50% people are not supporting marijuana anymore. We're at 75% a year ago. I wonder if that has something to do with all of the protests in Vancouver, if they're working against themselves now. And that's what I always say. Why are you doing this? You're actually hurting your cause now.
Yeah.
You're on the right track, and now
don't game the system. We've been gamed.
Now you're seeing go backwards. There's another thing for next week. I want to talk about the Surrey Police and their PR stuff.
Oh,
and their
yes.
logo and their police cars they launched. And I mean, talk about spin. I mean, this guy's they're not even there yet. And he's put a police car out front of City Hall with a new logo. Powering through. It's happening.
Tune in next week to UnSpun. That's it for this week.
Thanks.